Welcome back. You're watching a Newstrack special. We're bringing to you the results of India's first COVID doctor survey. We've spoken to 111 doctors spread across India's biggest cities, some of the biggest names in Indian medicine, and we're trying to give you a sense of what herd wisdom suggests about different aspects of our life. So we've dealt with about 5 questions so far. I want to go ahead and look at the rest of the questions now, starting with that one question which I'm sure is in the mind of many of our viewers about when would it be safe to go back to work. Not work from home, but actually go back to your office. So 3% of the doctors we spoke to said that you can go back after, 30% of the doctors we spoke to said you can go back after 3 months. 29% of the doctors we spoke to said you could go back after 6 months. 22%, 1 in 5, said you could go back now with precautions. 16% said after 1 month, and after a vaccine only 3%. So essentially, between 3 and 6 months is when 60% of the doctors think it will be safe to go back to work. Would you accept that, Dr. Giridhar Babu, that in about 3 to 6 months it might be safe to go back to work? Because people also sitting at home are now just reaching a point where they really want to go back to their offices and have the kind of water cooler conversations they did, go sit in the cafeteria, have food with their office colleagues. When would all that be possible in your view?
Yeah, Rahul, I think this has to be tailored to which state we are in India. And there are states which are seeing surge in cases now. Responding to Dr. Trehan's earlier assessment that Bangalore did well earlier. Yes, we did earlier, that's why the peak is lower. So therefore, when it's surging now, we'll have to be careful in Bangalore now. Hyderabad also same. One of the things that we absolutely have to tell everyone is above 50 years, it's safe to continue to work from home for some time. And for those cities which are seeing surge in cases, at least for the next 3 months, we'll have to be careful till the surge comes down. And in places where it's reasonably low prevalence, there we can start going to the offices. But however, we need to remember, in the offices, it's a closed space setting. Whenever you are meeting anyone, you will have to be wearing a mask, and there has to be physical distancing whenever there are workstations in a closed setting. So this is absolutely essential. That's the only medicine we have right now.
Professor Brahma Mukherjee, in our office, and I'm sure elsewhere too, they're now looking to set up temporary shields. You've got these plastic kind of shields which go up around every workstation to try and make things safer. Would things like that really reduce the risk in going back to work? Would you agree with the assessment of majority of the doctors that between 3 and 6 months, maybe it will be safe to go back to work?
So this is a hard question, and in the US we are grappling with this because University of Michigan, where I teach, for example, announced an in-person fall semester. So we are thinking about the minute details of going back to work, and we are working really extensively to make the workplace safer for the employees and the students that are going to come back. And that includes temperature checking, symptom reporting when you enter the building, as well as hand sanitizer stations. Those water cooler conversations are probably not going to happen for a long time because water coolers, coffee machines, these are places of high touch. And we really have to give up a lot from our work life. But think about, again, what is the essential that needs to be done? And the digital divide is not affecting everybody in a uniform way. Families with young children who cannot go back to school are being affected in terms of productivity in different ways. So we have to come back with a modulated, punctuated way of coming back to work. And it may be there is a randomized slot of 25% employees rotating through the whole week gradually. Some face-to-face interactions are really critical to retain meaning and purpose in our work. So for that, we are planning outside face-to-face socially distanced conversations in a park. We never thought about these new ways of working and living life, but I think we have to take every pathway to mitigate and minimize our risks in terms of being behind plexiglass covers. So
what I want to do is I want to zip through to the other questions as well, otherwise time will run out and I won't be able to finish. I want to take the next question. When will it be safe to shake hands? And here what's interesting is that 44% of the respondents, which is the maximum number of respondents who were doctors, said never again. So 44%, that's almost half the sample size, says that it's not safe to shake hands again. 6%, 32% say after 6 months, 19% say only after a vaccine comes, only 1% say after 1 month it may be safe. So basically, Sangeeta Reddy, about half the doctors are saying that you may always have to do a namaste, you shouldn't be shaking hands at all.
So Rahul, the namaste is going to become the new social norm, the new global norm for greeting people, and it's quite smart. It's much safer. Let's be clear about that. There's one other point which I think is very important to make, which is that we need our elderly to go into, in a month or two, the whole population to think of a concept of reverse isolation. So if you have elders at home, it is critical to isolate them while the rest of the world starts moving forward to a near normal type scenario. So the ideology of reverse isolation is a very important message I want to leave for everyone with elderly people at home.
Okay, so Ashok say 44%, would you be in that 44%? Would you feel comfortable shaking hands if I were to meet you? Or you would say, dur se namaste?
Oh, it'll always be namaste. In fact, it's great things that we've learned during this time. We've learned to do namaste. We've learned to wash hands. We've actually learned some very good things which will stay with me forever. There's no reason not to do this and shake hands. So Dr. Sunita actually said the very correct things. And again, I want to emphasize that whatever we do, whatever precautions we're taking, we must remember that we'll have to get back to life. We'll have to get to a norm. But we must remember what we bring back to our homes. So while there is all that happening around us, if there are elderly, if there are people to be safe, if there are children, we actually bring in things to them, and that's what we don't want to do. So we want to continue the precautions all the time, if not for ourselves, for our families as well.
Okay, I come to the next question, and as I said, I need to zip. That's the only way I'll finish. When will it be safe to invite and visit friends? If it's a small group, by and large, your friends are being careful. Would it be safe? So 32% say after 6 months, and that's the most important, because many people I know already experimenting and toying with this idea, but 32% say only after 6 months, 26% of the doctors say after 3 months, 18% say after you get a vaccine, 16% say now with precautions. But essentially, Dr. Trehan, only 16% of the doctors we spoke to are advocating going and meeting your friends and family, even though you think you're being careful and they're being careful, which means a lot of people who are watching you at this time are probably defaulters.
No, it's very simple. We have elucidated very clearly what you need to do for protection. You can't stop living, so you practice those 3 mantras that have been talked about every day, hundreds of times on every TV channel. So hand hygiene, masking and distancing. If you can do that and you go to meet people, only who are maybe 2-3 at a time in a space where you can maintain social distancing, well-ventilated place. Don't start taking off your mask because you're going to have dinner together or things like that. Those are the dangers. But if you can, and if you can meet in an open space, even better. So if you keep your distance, you keep your mask while you're in a closed space, if you have a fan, put it on full, so that the air circulates. Now, these are things that you need to incorporate in your life.
Have you, Dr. Trehan, invited friends and family over?
I'm sorry?
Have you had a chance to invite friends and family over?
Not to my house, but I have visited 1 or 2 friends. Yeah, with sitting 8 feet apart, just being able to talk things over. There's nothing wrong with that.
Dr. Seth, would you agree that if you're being careful, instead of living in an igloo, if you're being careful, it may not be a bad idea to go meet your friends and family? Just keeps you sane.
In fact, I will also say, to the extent that I've taken my 95-year-old father in my car to actually meet my sister, and we've sat aside, and that was a great social upliftment for him. He's been locked up in the house for literally now 4 months and feeling very frustrated in his room. I took him out, and I think it was great social upliftment for him. He actually enjoyed that memorable day. So I think if we take all the precautions, we finally have to understand we've got to get back to a normal with all the precautions. That would be the new norm. The new norm is not isolating yourself actually in an igloo and then coming out 6 months later to see whether the world still exists around you. It is, you still have to live in the world. You just have to define how. And we are doing that. By the way, the haircut issue, I've had a haircut. If you last saw me, it was going so long that it was getting intolerable. I made sure that I followed the norms of getting it done safely, and I had a haircut and I'm still doing okay.
No, one
So I
second.
think
How did you do this, Dr. Sid? Did you go to a salon or you called somebody over?
I went to a salon. I went to a salon. I made sure I was the only one in the salon. I paid extra for that. I made sure that he had an N95, that he had a visor. He cleaned his hands, and exactly like we're talking about, had a fast haircut. I just said, cut it as short as you can, and I'm about to go.
Yeah.
I wore a mask during that time. Actually, you have to define ways. I don't want to do it for the next 3 months, but at least you have to, when you get frustrated to an extent, that then you have to do an essential. I'm not saying non-essential. You do your essential acts because you've got to get back to life, and you do it with care.
You know, I hope my wife is watching. I suggested the same to her over the weekend. I was vetoed. She said, absolutely nothing doing. You stay at home, you're not getting a haircut, you don't need it. And that's it. So I hope she's watching.
Good.
Yeah, I hope she's watching. And then, you know, I can say if Dr. Ashok Seth did it, then surely I can be given some leeway as well. Okay. When will it be safe to go to a religious place? After 6 months, say 43% of the respondents. After 3 months, say 20% of the respondents. Now with precautions, say 15% of the respondents. After there's a vaccine, say 10% of the respondents. Now, after 6 months, and is that probably because, Dr. Giridhar Babu, of how crowded religious places tend to be? And we've seen in so many instances that lots of the super spreader events actually happened at religious congregations.
Yes, Rahul. And I have I tweeted about this earlier. Gods can wait. And we keep forgetting that God is universally present, and yet we would want to go only to the religious places to see whether God is there or not. So I think this is the time for testing the faith also. If you believe in God, stay at home and make sure your prayers are answered, not just for yourself, but for everybody else.
But many who are watching,
these are variants.
Sangeeta Reddy would say, when you go to God's home, you are Bhagwan Bharose quite literally, and God will take care of you. And therefore, you know, whoever their God may be, a mistaken notion would be that, okay, when I go to a temple or a Gurdwara or a church, my Lord will take care of me. Sangeeta Reddy?
So, Rahul, I think that, you know, we've spoken about a range of things, and, you know, I congratulate you for really getting doctors' opinion on this. The universal thread that's flowing across is that, number one, you have to continue to take safety norms. So if your temple is one where they're able to keep the distance, where it's not overcrowded, and it means a lot to, you know, some elderly aunt of yours, then help her go to a temple. I think the second important norm is that people are different. Somebody finds a haircut more important, someone finds a temple more important. So people are going to behave in whichever manner gives them the most pleasure. We need to now ensure that the narrative is about their safety, society's safety, and safety of the elderly. Weigh the balance, decide the behavior.
Okay.
And the answers will emerge from that framework. So if my mother-in-law wants to go to the temple, I'm going to make sure that it's empty, and I'm going to make sure I take her there.
Sure, but many people don't have that option of ensuring that a temple is empty or the salon is completely free of other people.
Lots of temples are organizing themselves so that they say only 10 people come in.
Sure.
Tirupati has opened up, but ultimately I personally agree that God is everywhere and you can pray wherever, but we must accept the fact that, you know, the world is made up of all kinds of people. And
I want to come to the next question because we're running out of time. So when will it be safe to hug someone? 36% of our respondents say after 6 months. 27% say never. And this really irks me because 27%, which is 1 in 4 of highly qualified medical practitioners of India's finest doctors, seem to believe that it's probably not going to be safe to hug anyone never. Like, just never ever hug anyone again. That's not a good feeling. 25% say after a vaccine, which again isn't good because the vaccine could be a long time coming. So essentially, if you are looking to hug someone, this could be a long, long wait. Let me just come very quickly to our next question. When will it be safe to stop wearing masks? You know, only around the time when I'm not anchoring is when I'm not wearing a mask. Otherwise, whenever I'm in office, we just have the mask on, and beyond a point, it really does get frustrating. So after 6 months, say 44% of our respondents, never again, say 26% of our respondents. Basically, they want us to have a mask on for the rest of our lives. 22% say after a vaccine. So the broad sense from these three answers, Dr. Trehan, is these masks are going nowhere. they're going to be a part of our life for a long, long, long time.
So the interesting fact, Rahul, is that you are talking to people who, like us, we go to work every day. Even now, seeing patients, we are exposed to it every day. And the only precaution we are really taking is our N95 mask. If we are in close proximity to patients, we wear a shield. We keep the patients, if they are coming just for a consultation, they must wear a mask also. We are operating all day. So for us, this exposure is omnipresent. But we are taking all the precautions that we can. So now the point is, masks is your new norm for sure, till you are sure that COVID-19 has disappeared on the face of the area where you live in. Now, Czechoslovakia showed a very early sign when on day one they started masking, and their surge was the slowest, and they had the least infections and death rates. But India, people, like somebody just said already, people still take down their mask to talk. I mean, that's when you really need it. That's when you need it, because you are exposing the other person to it. It's a well-documented thing. If both people are wearing a mask and the encounter is less than 15 minutes and it is further away from 3 feet, the chances of catching it from anybody becomes minuscule.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
Especially some of our netas, if you've been watching news TV,
okay,
when they have their mask hanging below their nose, they think they have it on, but actually they don't. This has been a fascinating conversation. As I said, there are no definite answers, but this is the best sense of what herd wisdom suggests. And herd wisdom in any poll is generally very useful. And we've had some very, very interesting insights from these top doctors. So I want to thank very much Dr. Ashok Seth, Dr. Naresh Trehan, Dr. Giridhar Babu, Professor Brahma Mukherjee, and Sangeeta Reddy for joining me on the Newstrack. There are some questions I couldn't get to. So if you want to see the rest of our survey, you need to go online on the India Today website and catch the 2 other questions which I couldn't get to. There has to be some reason for you to go read the rest on our website as well. So thank you very much for joining us for this special broadcast. I hope you found it useful. We'll have more for you on the other side of a quick break. Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kanwal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.